Hi everybody, here we are again back in my workshop. My name's Colwin. I am solo today. I have no one behind the camera, so you will see a few little stumbles toward the camera just to change view and bring you closer to the action. As like I say, I'm on my own, so everyone's busy. Okay, so we are going to turn this piece of crotch cherry today. So it's something I promised you for a long time, really. What I've done is a fair bit of preparation. This is a big project. We may not finish this today, so it might be a case of I get so far and then we finish up on the next video. So you know, this is quite a big lump. It's also fairly unbalanced. I have trimmed it a little bit with the bandsaw, using a V-block on the bandsaw, so my big bandsaw V-block. I'll just grab that quickly for you just to prove that I'm not just saying things. It's always very, very important when you're using a bandsaw and you're using round lumber, round logs, that sort of thing, that you avoid that skid. So many accidents happen from round pieces of timber being cut on a bandsaw and it's skidding and taking fingers off. You want to avoid it as much as possible. If you can get the job done at the chainsaw site, fantastic. Not always possible, I get that. So you just need to be extremely careful. If you've had no training on a bandsaw, don't attempt it. You need to have proper training before you do it. My sled is a very simple V-block. These are adjustable so I can move these in to clamp the block, and my fingers, my hands are nowhere near the line of sight with the bandsaw blade. Clamping is also encouraged as well to keep it down. And then I push that log through. The added bonus with this piece, it wasn't just round, so this is cut off of where is it, off of that end. It wasn't just round, I did have a fair flat here to rest it on as well. Now this is going to be used on other things. You would have seen me turn this a couple of weeks ago as well. I've turned a lump of this into a vase, that translucent vase with the light shining through it. This is the root ball basically, and the idea of this would just come from a question from you guys. You said I'd like to see a crotch section turn. So this is a crotch section, but the root crotch rather than the branch crotch. So basically crotch just means where you have several intersecting branches or roots coming into one place. You get some amazing patterns. This being cherry is beautiful anyway, the colours are stunning, but the grain is going to swirl. Obviously it's soaking wet, that's going to come with its own challenges. Until I've turned the outside of this off, I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to turn this to a finish and allow it to move and have that as part, that sculptural finish as part of the finished piece, part of the USP as it were. Or whether I'll rough turn it and let it dry for a few months and then return it. We'll have a look in a minute and we'll discuss the pros and cons with both of it. I just want to see what the grain's going to look like, that if I'm honest. So pop that to one side. I'm going to use for a big gouge, so we're going to go with the M42 crown. This is a 1/2 inch, so 12mm gouge, and that's measured on the flute width of course. And to start with, very, very carefully, I've got a lot of things going on. I've got a big jumbo drive on one side and I've got a big ring centre on the other. Saying all of that, I don't take any chances with my own safety. I'm going to have a good visor on. I'm not going to turn too quickly. I'm going to wear this visor so you can hear what I'm saying. I'm not having dust protection here. I've got a wet piece of wood. You do still need to have concerns. I mean, normally again, if I wasn't talking to you guys, I would have my respirator on, because you're not only going to get dust from some wet wood, you get some nasty chemicals released into the air in that cadmium layer. So you do need to be a little bit careful. I know laurel's a particularly nasty one, so you do need to watch it. So dust protection and lung protection all the time, really. I just need you to hear what I'm saying. So we're not going to delay anymore, we're just going to crack into it. What will be with this bit, it's a bit of a Christmas present. We don't know what we get until we unwrap it. So here goes. I'm just going to keep talking to you as we work through this. I'm going to bring the camera close. You won't see me ugly mug. You won't see my face at all. You're just going to see the bit of timber, but you will hear me. That's the added bonus, I guess. So here we go. So let's get you in nice and close. Okay, there we are. So nice and low to start with. Check to make sure nothing's touching the tool rest. All of my clamps are done up nice and tight. Okay, we've got some lumps that I'm going to work on first, so I'm just gingerly going to take them away, and then I might be able to start turning the lathe up a little bit. So I'm not going to wrestle this lump, I'm just going to take it nice and steady. The grain is running all over the place. And to start with, it seems like it is a bit of a battle because you've only got part of that timber touching the tool at any one time. But persevere, it will suddenly become nice and round and you'll be able to work a bit easier. So this would be a case of bear with me at this point. Like I say, it will quickly come down. Already it's getting a bit better. This is the reason gougers are made with a longer handle than most other tools. It's always worth every now and again just checking the tailstock, making sure everything's still tight. I'm just going to stop the lathe. I want to move the tool rest down a little bit, so I want to stop the lathe. Don't worry about any of this at this stage. It's not an issue because, of course, we've got a lot to take off yet. We're already starting to contact several areas, so once we start contacting more than just one area, you get a much sweeter cut. Just the bark touching, so we're okay there. Of course, you can put this on a faceplate if you're unsure that the grip wasn't being sufficient. Put it on a faceplate. This is where you do end up having most of your workshop covered in shavings, especially on wet timber. There we are, you can hear that noise of it contacting several areas now. Adjust the tool rest again, double check the tailstock. I mean, as much as these are great fun, you never quite know what you're going to get. My intention for this is to do like a hollow form, but I want some holes in it. I want to be able to see through it. There's some big boys. Do the adjustment. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to start thinking about a foot fill my chuck. I want to get it held in the chuck fairly quickly. And at the moment, the tailstock end is going to be where the chuck is going to grip. So we're going to flip it. This is going to be the top of the pot. Tighten up my belt in a minute. Let's do it now. So I'm just going to clean up this edge, this end here. Get a little bit closer. Now, being soaking wet, you're getting a lot of sap. Already, I'm getting some blue tinging coming off the steel. That's understandable. You've got tannic acid in a lot of timber. So what I would do, if you didn't want to get that, maybe a barrier cream before you start turning. That would help. There we are. I think we're getting... this is coming on quite well now, so I'm just going to bring my speed controller closer to me. I want to be able to get to it quickly if I need to. Whoa, not that quick, Colwin. Go down. So it's still a little bit unbalanced, it won't let me go too quick. I'm going to use a really nice big gripper jaw. So let's have a look. Let's go with, I got what we refer to as Dove G's here. This is a Dove G. Okay, so they have a nice gripper section on the inside. Okay, really quite a huge amount of power in there. Of course, I want to get it to its optimum size, so that'll be where there is only a 6mm gap between the jaws. And I'm going to use my calipers to get that size onto the blade. So there we are. So there is my optimum size. You can see the amount of gap between the jaws. That's basically where the chuck, or the jaws are at their perfect circle. Okay, so there's the size I need. So we've got a little bit to take off yet. And we're about there. So now I'm going to screw that foot up. Let's make it a bit deeper. I'll square that off in a moment. So I'm going to square it off just with, I don't know, go with anything really. Let's go for a standard skew. There we are. Not a dovetail, this is a gripper section, so I want a nice 90-degree angle in there. Right, now for my safety, I'm going to get that held in the chuck and then I can carry on turning the main shape. So let's just get my visor off for a moment. Change a few things around. Now this is by no means a quick project, it shouldn't be. You think about here, we're changing now, and we're up in the ante a little bit from some of the projects we've been doing in the past few weeks and months. This is becoming one of those projects that need to be considered, because now we're looking at potential danger. There's a big lump of timber flying around. Speeds are a huge issue, so you see me nursing the speed. I don't want to go too quick. Don't put myself under danger. You think about the holding of that lump. It needs to be really secure. Okay, so I'm not taking any risks. And chuck key, there it is. We're going to flip him around now. And this is going to give me a really nice secure grip. But I'm also, because I can, still going to use the tailstock. Why not? Let's give ourselves an absolute, really secure piece of timber in the lathe there. Right, happy with that now. So check the tool rest. Okay, let's give a bit of an angle. And I'm going to start taking some waste away. So lathe speed is 0. I've changed a lot of things on the lathe. So I want to, again, no surprises. It looks like the camera's looking quite good there. So I'm going to remove some waste so I can start upping the speed. Really lovely smell for this piece. Just going to bring you round a minute. I think you can get a really good view of the tool cutting this side, so bear with me. You get my view of what's happening there now. Okay, I think we need, well, let's stop and have a look. Look, we've got some really interesting things coming on. This is going to be so nice when we come around the top. What I think I'm going to do, just while I've got you there, is just a little bit of cleanup. So if I grab my metal brush and just start taking out some of that, or I have cleaned some of this away before using a screwdriver just to dig out some of the earth. I'm being a root bore. Then obviously there is a lot in there. There's a big watch that I've just got rid of. There we are. I'll do this again once we got the final shape. If there's some nice gnarly bits of bark, I'll texture them with a wire brush. That was good. But the other thing that's happened now is my chisel's gone blunt. So let's do a little bit of sharpening for you. Again, we can get you right into the action now. I'm going to use, normally if I'm doing a batch of these, I would have I had several bowl gouges. I still have some gouges behind me that we're going to use, but we use the Tormek jig. All I'm going to do hold the jig in there. We're going to have a protrusion through the jig of 65mm. Okay, let's get the machine going. Get some light on the action then. So 65mm protrusion there, and I'm going to work that out with the Tormek TTS 100, the tool checker. These measurements here are 55, 65, 75. I need the 65, and as that's very lucky, I've got that bang on without measuring. But you just measure in there, and away you go. I've set the bar already, and I'm not going to do it now because the machine's running, but basically that goes on there, and you use these two metal discs, make sure they both touch the wheel, and that gives you a set distance from bar to wheel then. Ever so easy. And then the other thing is that this knuckle, this elbow here, is set to position 4. This works for me. This is my 55-degree bevel angle. This one's got a secondary bevel on as well, just to make life a little bit easier when going around corners on the inside of bowls and stuff like that. But all that we're going to do now, and it's a CBN wheel, is rotate the chisel around, and honestly, a couple of passes, and the chisel's done. The other thing that you'll notice with a CBN is you get very little sparks as well. I haven't seen a spark yet, which is different from a carburetor or aluminium oxide wheel, of course. A couple of weeks' time, when these come back into stock, I'm going to show you how to set the BGK 400, this system here, up onto your bench grinder. I'm waiting for the slow speed grinders to come in though, and then we'll do that as another little demo for you. I'm going to leave the jig out because I've no doubt we're going to need it again in a minute. Now, what side shall I put you on for the moment? Let's put you back on my side. There we go. Get everything nice and close again. Double check everything. Every time you stop, just check. There's nothing, there's no harm in checking the security of the piece every time. Makes you a little bit more confident. Lathe speed is fine where we left it off. And we're going to carry on roughing down. On these root balls, it's not uncommon to reach a bit of stone or flint or something like that. So it's worth having a check. And if you've got something like a pressure washer, that sort of thing, then give it a good spray off. Right, I think we can turn the speed up a little bit. The lathe will tell me if it's had enough. There we are, that's pretty good. Right, so I'm just going to stop now. I just want to see what we're looking at, where we are. I want some solid, which down here, obviously, to hold the piece together. But I think now I can start coming in. I can start shaping this piece now. So I'm going to start doing it with this relatively blunt chisel again. And then we'll sharpen everything up to get some finishing cuts going. grab another gouge. That's pretty much dead again. Now we're getting there. We're getting more the shape I want. And what I think I'm going to do is take you back around so you can see the shape forming as we cut. And you'll be able to see all those lovely gnarly holes and things like that now. So we're just roughing these cuts at the moment. I'm getting to a point now where I want to start getting that final shape together. So let's work on the top. Stop, see what we're presented with. Look at that, how cool is that? That's lovely. A little bit of a bark inclusion there, I'm happy with that. Not quite so happy with this bit of soft bark here. So what I'd probably do with that is we'll texture that, give it a brush off. I think we're getting there, I think we've got something now. So I think I'm just going to do a couple of little refinements and then we can start looking at the actual hollowing out process. Again, I think we're going to stop at that point. I think we'll go over to the next video to do that bit, but let's get him up to this point where we're ready. Speed up, I think. Just. Now, if you're intending to rough this, you don't need to do the next bit. All I'm doing is just tidying everything up, and I'm using the bowl gouge as a shearing action, and I'm using the bottom edge almost like a skew, really. Just tidying up a few areas. Let's give got some real woolly bark down there, it's not helping, but no excuses. We've gone really blunt again. I've got a feeling we might have a stone or piece of metal somewhere. Ah, yeah. There's a stone there. So that bit of stone needs to come out. That's why the chisel's gone blunt again. But that in itself is a beautiful piece. There we are. That's mud. That'll come out. Another bit of stone in there. In fact, quite a big bit of stone in there. Mud. This is going to be a special piece. I'm already quite excited about this. Good stuff. Right, I want to get that shape form now. Let's go to another gouge. Another stone. You know the stones because what happens? It'll leave a ridge, and the chisel just completely stops working. There we are. That'll do at that end for the minute. Now, I want to make sure that I don't have any flats here. I want to keep a continual curve. At the moment, there's something wrong there, so we're going to just do a fresh cut. There we are. I think I'm a bit happy with that. Got a lot of sharpening to do after this. I'm going to keep all the blunt chisels out. Now look at that. What a wonderful bit of timber. What a fantastic bit of timber. So I am gonna let the outside of this dry, only because the bark will act differently once it's dry. This area I'm going to texture a little bit. At the moment it's a bit too soft, so it's quite woody. But this is my favourite side here. Look at this swirl. That's a really special bit of timber. A lot going on. So that's a root ball. So because of that, the roots coming in from every direction, you get this fantastic swirl. So what we'll do next, we're only half an hour in, so what we can do is drill this. So I don't like using hollowing tools unless you've got the center drilled out. So let's remove the tailstock, bring that back, get rid of all, this is all wet. Once you've done this, you can't do a project like this, walk away from the lathe and leave it overnight. You've got to do some maintenance on the lathe afterwards. I'm going to use some camellia oil once I've taken all the wet off. We'll do that before we leave, and that applies to every metal area, even tool post, or put this part of the tool post, and internally on the saddle here. And it'd be wise to get things underneath as well, so a good clean off. I tend to do, if I'm wet turning, do a batch of wet turning and then clean down at the end of the day. Good time of year to be doing it is in the autumn time, fall time, purely because you haven't got really hot temperatures. I say that, of course I'm here. You're in Australia, then your winter time is still fairly warm, of course. So we will use that chuck there. I'm just gonna, before we drill, just take off that little nib in the middle so we've got somewhere to contact. Lathe speed to 0, turn the machine on or off again. Let me just double check that. Chuck, that's good and tight. Turn the machine on. Just gonna take away that little nib. Visor, nearly forgot the visor. Don't do that. Okay. Now the position I want to get to for you today, we want to start hollowing. When you're not here, I'll do a bulk of the hollowing because they're so boring because you can't see what's happening, but then I'll finish the hollowing off for you as well. So I'll start today, we'll finish on the next video, and then we can start thinking about, are we going to rough turn it, are we going to finish it? And I think potentially it's going to be a rough turn one, so we might see this later down the line. It won't be too long. So we've done that now. We're going to just make a little dot with a skew, just so the drill bit can pick up. Everything out of the way. Now I I haven't got too many options when it comes to drill bits, so I'm going to go for a fairly long lip and spur. That'll get me down a decent way. I'm probably going to go all the length of that one. Yeah, we go right to the bottom with that one. Lay speed at the moment is fine. Wet timber shouldn't be too difficult to work on. I'm running at just over 700 revs there. One hand on the chuck all the time. Just you can tell if it's starting to get a little bit stiff and if things start to twitch and move a little bit. You know it's time to start clearing shavings. You're in control. As long as I can see shavings coming out and the handle's moving freely on the tailstock, I'm happy. As soon as the handle starts to stiffen, then there's resistance. So I'm just going to clear the shavings out. There you go. My hand was able to stop that from twisting. Because once it starts to twist, it's quite difficult to stop, because the first thing you're going to do is turn the lathe off. And once you turn the lathe off, trying to move a stuck drill bit is quite difficult. So don't touch that with your fingers now. This is already too hot. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit of wax. And it can be any of your finishing waxes. Don't be too precious which one. It honestly doesn't matter. I've got a really old tin of wax here. It tells you this is an old liberal one, probably from the 80s. So let's use that. A little bit of tissue. A lovely smell to this. This is the turpentine one. But you can see how hot that drill bit gets. It's melting the wax as it touches it. Oh, wonderful smell. There we go. So do an inch or so, release the chuck, bring the chuck out, holding the chuck with your hands. There we go, back in again. You might think that this is a bit of a faff having to do this. Why don't we just get on and start hollowing? The trouble with hollowers, well, not the trouble with them, they just don't like the centre pit. It's not rotating quick enough for them to cut. There we are. Again, just release the pressure and bring back nice and steadily, clear the shavings, and away you go again. Release the pressure, come back. My hand's doing quite a lot of work there to stop that from twisting. My drill bits aren't in great condition. I'll admit that freely. So the rust on them is probably creating a bit of friction as well. But this is what most of us are used to. We don't all have a Ferrari garage as a workshop. There we are. I think that should be enough. I'll get rid of that. There. Now the exciting bit. Now we can start looking at the hollowing tools. Turn the lathe off just for the moment. Okay, I'm going to bring you back a little bit because I want you to see my stance here. Tailstock's got to come off because we're going to be working that end of the lathe. I need to be stood here so I can actually be comfortable in position. Now, a couple of hollowers. We've got the extension arm here. So this is the Proformer by Woodcut. This is basically two handles. One handle repeated, and that gives me a load of leverage. If I'm doing a really hollow form, I can get that right under the shoulder, get down a little bit, and put some weight on top of it. I'm not going to need it to start with. I may not need it on this piece. It's only a fairly small pot anyway. So we're going to go with one of the smaller arms. And I'm using, this is lovely wet timber, so I'm using the Woodcut cutting hollower here. These just need to be kept nice and sharp. Any one of your files, whether it's a DMT, Axminster, Trend, and just every now and again, just make sure you're keeping that really sharp. They will not perform if they're not razor sharp. Every now and again I will tornic them. And the way these work, basically what you have, I'll come to the camera, what you have here is a limiter. So this brass section, or brass coloured section up here, is a limiter. And the further you bring that back, the more throat that opens up on the cutter and allowing you to make a bigger shaving. Really quite nice to use. You've got to make sure that the bar's touching the tool rest, so you can't have the tool rest too close. You don't want to be on the cutter here. And slightly high as well. So I'm going to work from centre to outside edge. The speed is good. I want to bring my controller though over to me where I can stop the machine if I need to. Visor can come back on again. And we'll start hollowing. We can speed up a little bit. I'm going to move the tool rest a bit closer now, but this is a fairly, I wouldn't say it's an overly curvaceous hollow form, but there will be a point where that straight, the straight probe type cutter won't get into that curve. So there are options after that. You can either go for something like this. So this is the Woodcut slightly bent cutter, or if you want to go extremes, then you can go for something like the swan neck, where you can get right in underneath the shoulder of a piece. So let's just do another few more seconds with that one, upping the speed a fraction. Then I'm gonna, like I say, we're gonna stop the video there. I'll crack on and do most of it because it's fairly boring to watch, and then when we come back on the next video, you'll be able to see the finishing of the inside and also how we finish the outside of the pot. I want it to dry though, I've made that decision, so we're a little bit faster. I'm working from the inside or the centre to the outside, only because I want to be cutting side grain. I don't want to be tackling end grain. I've got a feeling we might be hitting a stone on the inside as well, which is not so much fun with a hollowing tool. There we are. I think you've seen enough. You get the idea. I'm going to work more on the woodcuts as the rest of the year progresses, because it's one of my favourite hollowing tools. One thing I would recommend, if you're going to do a lot of hollowing, certainly a compressor with a blower is really useful, just to stand to one side and start blowing the air out. It also helps to speed up the drying process. You can start blowing some of that sap out as well. So I'll just turn that compressor off for a moment. So I think that root ball is turning out quite nice. You've seen, I've shown you a close-up of it, so you can see exactly what we're dealing with. It's a pretty bit of timber. But I think what I'll do now, I'll carry on and hollow that out. When we come back in the next video, I should have this pretty much dry. So it'll be a couple of weeks or few weeks to go. It'll certainly be before Christmas. We can look at finishing that off, what finish we're going to put on it, and how we take the bottom off, yeah, get it to its completion. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you're going to attempt one of these, please be safe. Make sure you know your limitations as much as how to turn the piece. You need to understand your own skill level when you attempt something big like this. Clean it off as much as you physically can before you start, and make sure your hole points are dead secure. And speed is the issue. If you can get it to a nice even blank before you put it on the lathe, more the better. But again, in that process, make sure you're safe. Bandsaws can cause horrific injuries, as do chainsaws. So make sure you do all those safety precautions, V-blocks, and all the correct safety gear. But guys, enjoy it. Have fun with it. Start small, work your way up. I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you ever so much for watching. And join me again on the next live session. I've been Colwin. Thank you very much. Happy turning. Goodbye.